Okay, I think we are live. Good afternoon. Very, very good. All right, so I'm excited to be here for our Friday conversation. Welcome to our live stream, Holding Space for Healing with the Nichols Center. My name is Tara Nichols. I'm a licensed mental health clinician here in Georgia, and been looking forward to this conversation all week. So if you have been following my live stream, normally we're able to do these Friday mornings, but today my schedule was just all kinds of sideways. So I apologize that I missed our morning time, but I really truly wanted to share this lesson with you today. So I was grateful I was able to get on this afternoon. The office is quiet. Everyone has gone home for the weekend. And so I just wanted to take the time to still get this conversation in for our weekly training. So welcome. I hope that you had a wonderful Friday. I hope that your week was productive and engaging, and that you are truly living that authentic life. We each have only these years, these breaths in our bodies, and this time that we have on this earth. And so I hope that you are living it in wholeness and in wellness. And if you're not, then let's do some realigning. And some of these conversations, I think, specifically speak to that. How do you realign your life? How do you reroute your life into a more authentic way to live, and a kinder, more compassionate way to grow? And so today I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about that. So this is our fourth episode, right, of this live stream, and I have been reaching out to some of you that have watched this to really kind of learn, what kind of topics are you interested in? What would you like to learn more about in regards to trauma-informed therapy, in regards to living in a more trauma-informed way, or building community programs? So as the director of the Nichols Center, these are things that are very dear to my heart, building trauma-informed programming across my community, and sharing that information with you. But then also setting up a wellness center here at the Nichols Center, and setting up a life that is dialed into those key concepts of trauma healing. So the Nichols Center, our key pillars are wellness and recovery. And the reason that we focus on wellness is that we believe that life is hard, right? We all experience suffering, we all experience trauma, and if we're not careful, we can all end up in a state of illness, right? If we're not taking care of our bodies, if we're not taking care of our brains, we can end up through stress, through experiences, through issues that we face, we can end up in a state of unwell and illness and unhappiness. And it is our responsibility with this beautiful life and this intentional way of being to focus on the things that keep us in wellness, the things that protect our peace and drive us towards wholeness. And so the important thing to remember is that this is your life, and this is a space that you can show up and really begin to focus on what it is you want to do with the time you have. But you can't do those things if you're not protecting and supporting yourself. All right, we are getting something's coming through. All right, sorry, getting distractions. So let's talk about what that means. What does it mean to face trauma, to face illness, and protect that wellness, right? And so much of who we are is about how we choose to believe, how we choose to think, how we choose to plan, and how we choose to design our life. So my hope in today's lesson is that we would begin unpacking some of those beliefs and then seeing how those belief systems focus our time and our attention in the direction towards a life that's rooted in wellness. So I hope you guys are ready for this. I've been planning, I've been excited. One of the concepts of therapy that I rely on when really setting up clinical planning for people is cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's the idea of cognition, your mind, your thinking, and behavioral, your actions, align together in order to establish a better outcome. And cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, C for cognitive, B for behavioral, T for therapy, CBT is a very well established, very well researched form of therapy. And clinicians that utilize cognitive behavioral therapy, they really begin unpacking the thoughts or the belief systems that drive the behavior. They don't just focus on the behavior. And they think if you understand the cognitive side, the thought process behind a behavior, then you can actually begin influencing that behavior in a more effective way. And cognitive behavioral therapies, like I said, they're very, very well established. It's a great form of therapy, and I utilize it quite a bit when helping individuals unpack their trauma. But I believe that you have to actually go a little deeper than just this thought plus this behavior. I think when you identify what cognitive processes people struggle with, and you begin isolating, okay, these thoughts are not healthy, you have to go a little deeper beyond just that initial thought and understand where is the root trauma, where is the root pain, what is driving behind that thought. And if you've read my book, The Authentic Woman, you'll know that that very first intervention, the circle of pain, that really is where you start digging deeper. You take that symptom issue and you dig deeper into where is that fear and where is that trauma and where is that initial pain. But the second lesson in that is called The Brain as an Airport. And that helps you begin understanding how thoughts create alignment. And when you have a thought or an experience about one thing, that experience forms belief systems that tie to other experiences when your brain begins clustering those experiences together. And I'll give you an example. If you, let's say when you were a child, if your parents divorced, or if you saw a lot of fighting, that experience in your childhood, when you start getting older, some of your relationship decisions, some of the way you process anger or the way you process arguments or even friendships and how those friendships change could be impacted by those early experiences, and you could operate in your future based on traumas that happened in your past. So then you have to ask yourself, the way I'm handling this, my friend no longer wants to be my friend, or like maybe they're not responding to me, and maybe they're busy, but because I had this childhood experience where the people I cared about abandoned me, or my parents fought all the time and it was very, very toxic, so now I don't have these good skills and tools to understand that people can have disagreements and it's okay. Those current day experiences, those current day problems actually can be fueled or influenced by these other experiences that back that belief up, right? So if you have a belief that, the friends you have or the people in your life have historically, you have had a lot of abandonment, right? Well, you might not be able to understand that the relationships you have today, or the relationships that you have with friends, or even new relationships you haven't formulated yet, you might have a lot of fear that those past experiences, those beliefs about yourself that, well, nobody could love you, or, everybody you care about leaves you, that could actually impact your ability to establish meaningful relationships in your present or in your future. And so that's kind of a very basic overview of how cognitive thoughts can get compounded over time, and those belief systems that are formulated from those experiences really do influence, your current situation, but even your future situations. And so from a therapeutic side, what we begin to do is say, okay, well, do we like these thoughts? Are these thoughts healthy? And they might have kept us safe, right? The idea that, people aren't really going to be loyal to you or protect you or there for you might have kept you safe, at least in your mind, from abandonment or, having friends that relationships that, didn't work out. And, it might have kept you safe by handling it a certain way, but it might not have been the authentic way you would like to be in those relationships, right? So you might have decided to, break up early or, avoid certain friendships, and that in your mind would have been what was safer for you at that time. But is that really how you always want to be? Do you always want to be driven by those early childhood experiences, or even those more recent past experiences? Those belief systems and those trauma experiences, do you want to carry those into your future life and your life that is rooted in wellness, right? And that kind of leads us to the idea of recovery. We talked about wellness, but the other pillar is the pillar of recovery. And recovery is the idea that you can come back from, heal from, move through some of the past traumas and actually begin establishing a new way of living, a new transformative experience for your future. And so you have the ideas of wellness, not just avoiding illness, but actually living in a way that keeps you healthy and happy and authentic, and focused on what you need, focused on what brings you peace and brings you joy. But then there's the idea of recovering what was lost, right? Healing from the past trauma and saying, okay, do I still want to operate in my future as that hurt person? That person who felt abandoned, or that person who felt unloved or unsupported? Or can I begin shifting those narratives and those cognitive thoughts and allow my behaviors, instead of always avoiding relationships or running away or breaking up too soon, or can I handle those in a more open-hearted and compassionate way? And that's that other pillar of recovery. So at the Nichols Center, we really want families and individuals that, whether they are struggling with substance use or mental health disorders or childhood abuse or past traumas or really anything, grief, loss, wanting to establish a greater supportive community, whatever your reason for engaging with the Nichols Center is. But we want to teach people these pillars: wellness and recovery. But as I was thinking this week, as I was going into some of my meetings and some of my conversations, I began seeing a theme emerge, and it's really something that's happening across the center and across, even with the global work that we're doing in Uganda, with the workshops and our wonderful staff that's there, and our wonderful team that we're building in Uganda. The thing that I feel like is emerging is that as individuals are focusing on their wellness and recovery and their cognitive spaces and their behavioral changes and trying to shift their life into a new authentic state of well-being, the other side of this is that we're seeing shifts in communities. We're seeing shifts in larger spaces where corporations and industries and groups of people are beginning to focus on these key concepts. of wellness and recovery. But the truth of the cognitive behavioral approach has to be applied in these greater, larger spaces as well. Not just for the individual, not just for the one person or the one family, but these groups of people, businesses, companies, churches, support groups. We have to start looking as community programs and community partners at how can we begin identifying the areas in which our communities have experienced trauma and have faulty belief systems or harsh thinking patterns about certain situations, and how can they begin healing those to shift those beliefs towards wellness. And let's talk this through, because I think this is a very simple idea applied to a complex system. And so I really want to begin allowing you guys to unpack this, okay? So the simple idea is that if you have a negative belief system, your behavior is going to most likely generate a negative outcome, right? And in a type of cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the original cognitive behavioral therapeutic interventions was REBT, rational emotive behavioral therapy. And REBT says that an activating event plus a belief about the event equals a response or outcome. So if you have an activating event, and let's, I spilled my coffee, right? The belief that follows that event, oh my gosh, I'm so clumsy, I always make a mistake. That belief, right? I always mess up, equals an outcome. I will be more stressed, my heart rate will elevate, I will become shamed, I will feel upset with myself, and my brain will begin focusing on all the times I've been clumsy, made a mistake, let myself down, shamed myself, and I will begin stacking up reasons why I should feel horrible about myself for spilling the coffee. Now, if we were to do a therapeutic process on this, what we would do is say, okay, which part of this behavioral chain can we change? Can we change the fact that the coffee spilled? Well, maybe not. You might change whether you put a lid on your cup of coffee, and that could help, but accidents happen, and you can't always change that. So how could I change this? Well, what if you change that belief? Instead of saying, I always make a mistake, or I always spill, or I'm so clumsy, what if you said, oh my gosh, this was an accident, accidents happen, or, oh, there must be a reason why I'm going to be delayed now for my coffee, or, oh, maybe my body didn't need that coffee after all. Maybe I actually probably had enough caffeine for the day. Whatever new belief you assign to that scenario is going to create a different outcome. Now, sometimes that's hard to do, right? Because, a cup of coffee is very important. And so it might be really hard not to be upset about that. But if you take that belief and let's say you spill the coffee and you're like, oh man, I'm always making mistakes. But instead of saying that, you're going to say, that was an accident. Hate it, but I guess it's time for me to go buy a new cup of coffee. And then add to that something that can help calm you, support you, or fill that upsetness. Like, I'm just going to take a deep breath and go talk to a friend about this. I've had a really kind of rough day. I spilled my coffee and I was feeling really bad about it, but I decided to change that and just, come talk to you instead. That could actually impact and change the way you respond so much more significantly than if you just brushed it off. So, activating event, new belief, and a new behavior, C and B, cognitive and behavioral, new belief and new behavior equals a greater outcome. And we know that to be true on a personal level. But what if our programs, what if our church groups and our businesses and our therapeutic centers and our government spaces, what if on a greater level we began prioritizing these new beliefs and new behaviors? And how would this impact individuals who have been historically surviving with trauma to also adopt these changes? So if you're a school teacher and you're in a school system, and the way the school usually handles problems is to correct, document, punish the child or the parent or the situation in a harsh way, how would making a simple change that is a little bit more understanding and a little bit more focused on wellness, how would that implement a different outcome for that person? How could, on a church level or on a community program level, or even on a friend group, maybe you're not in a big organization, but you have a book club or a mom circle, and the individuals in your group might struggle with certain emotional feelings and beliefs about themselves. But if you shifted it just a little and you said, one of the great examples I like to use is I'm late quite a bit. I struggle sometimes with managing all of my responsibilities and setting up systems that would be supportive of me being more on time. And so I used to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I'm late, it's terrible. But it wasn't helping me. It wasn't supporting me to not be late. It was just stressing me out more, because then I felt bad about being late all the time. So I started doing something different where I would tell my friends, all right, well, if I'm late, I'm buying coffee. Or if I'm late, I'm going to, bring the treat or the reward or whatever. And I started giving myself more grace and more support of, I shifted my time from here to here. But when I showed up with more compassion for myself. And instead of apologizing for always being late, I would thank them. Thank you for waiting on me. Let me get you your coffee now. Let me support you in this way because you supported me. You supported me by not shaming me because I was running late. So let me give back to you now. And that changed a lot of the stress within me. And I know that that's such a small example and it's such a simple way. But if we did that in our programs, if we did that with our families who are facing food insufficiencies or childhood abuse or failing grades or late rent and late notices and really we're suffering with so much more, if we did small changes like that in those bigger systems, we would create more openness to those individuals feeling seen, heard, and supported. So I know that this is kind of a lot to unpack, and I would like to do more. I've got some worksheets. I'm going to put them in our online group on the website about the behavioral changes. And I want to talk more about this in the next episodes to come, about how these simple shifts can begin really opening up our minds to how often we reach for that negative belief. Oh, that parent didn't come. Well, they must not care. Or that person didn't show up. They must be wasting my time. Or that friend didn't, wasn't very nice to me or was rude or left without saying goodbye. They must not appreciate me. But if instead of that, we started reframing those simple feelings, those simple beliefs about our communities, we would make so much more of an impact. So that's all I've got today. I hope that you have an incredible, incredible day. I look forward to hearing more from you, and I will put that information in our group and talk to you guys soon.